Hi, Phil here with Panda Vintage Furniture. Today I'm going to do my first video for you. We're going to be restoring this beautiful mid-century modern teak veneered credenza. It is a decent piece. It's a little wobbly as you can see, but we'll take care of that. I think if we sand it down, get rid of the water stains and water spots, any little nicks and dents, we can probably stain it and clear coat it and make it look beautiful again. Now the first thing we're going to do is take off the hardware, which it looks like I've got some of the original hardware and some reproduction. So that's what I want to get rid of and find all original, which is going to be a chore. So let's get to it. I'm giving you a little bit of a sneak peek of the finished product here, but I thought I'd use this opportunity to kind of go over some of the materials and the tools that I'm using to make these videos. So first thing, with the sanding, I use one of these, a random orbit sander. It's got these little holes so the sander actually vacuums up most of the dust. Not all of it, but it does a real good job. The nice thing is, as it spins, it's constantly moving, so it doesn't make swirl marks on your finished job. But make sure you get different grits. If you're getting a lot of old paint off, use like an 80 or 100 grit, and then move up to a 120 or a 150 grit as you get into the finer work, just to make it easier, make it look better. I use a lot of sandpaper sheets. I usually fold them into thirds just like this. And I use mostly 150, 220, and then 320 for rubbing out before the final finish. Steel wool I did not use on this. Sometimes if you're using it with a water base, if you get little pieces of the steel wool in and you don't get rid of them, it'll rust underneath your surface and it doesn't look good. When I re-glued the legs, I used a yellow carpenter's glue. Some people enjoy using the Gorilla Glue. It does take a long time to set up. It can make a mess. It's difficult to work with, but it is strong. On the stain, I usually use a little chip brush like they sell at Home Depot, Lowe's, any hardware store sells these. They're usually less than $1. Once you use the stain, throw it away. Any rags you use with an oil-based stain, make sure you lay those out flat, because they can actually, if they're balled up, they can catch on fire in your shop and burn your garage down, your shop down. We don't want that. I use a spray gun to spray the finishes. It's faster and easier than using a brush. I do a lot of this, so it definitely saves me a lot of time. If you're planning on doing one piece, or if you've got a special piece at home you don't want to spend a lot of money on, because looking at a gun, this one was about $75, compressors anywhere from $100 to $500. So if you want to just do one project at home, brushes are great. Just make sure you buy a quality brush like Purdy or something like that. The better the brush, the better quality your finish will be. So take that information and enjoy the rest of the video. Now, as I take the drawers out, I put a small piece of tape on the bottom and I write where the drawers were so we can get them back in the right position. So this one is the left bottom. Now the next step is going to be to take these legs off that are wobbling. So it's just a few screws, and of course they used slot and Phillips. Looks like they missed some hardware at one time and they replaced it, but it'll never be seen, so that'll be fine. See, it's already falling apart. Now the next step is to take this thing apart into as many pieces as we can. I've already got the drawers out. I've got the legs off. Now the reason we do that is because you see here in the grooves, that's where your stain or your finish is going to get kind of balled up. So the more pieces you take it into, the better your finish is going to be. All right, you can see we've got it taken apart. It had a little bit of glue here, but when I sand it, this will all come off. They did use particle board on this with the veneer wrapped around the edges, and it is a good quality piece. You can see that there are dovetails there holding this together, so definitely worth a restoration. Now here's the backsplash for the piece. As you can see, I'm using my random orbital sander. Right now I've got 150 grit discs on it, which will take off the finish and it won't cut too deep where it'll go through the veneer, so you just have to be careful. Right now I'm working on taking off the old varnish that's on the top part there. Most of the rest of it is buried behind the rest of the cabinet, which is good because I can use that for testing out the varnish and the stain. You can see right here there's a little chip taken out of the veneer where somebody had put a tack in that earlier. So what I'm going to do, since this backsplash sits down below the back of the cabinet, I'm going to take a small rip off of that and remove about a little less than 1/8 inch of material with my table saw. Okay, it's all sanded now. You can see I got rid of that little chip on the edge. This took about 5 minutes to sand the whole thing front and back, so luckily the old varnish was not too thick and the veneer coat is nice and thick, which really helped. The edge strip on this piece sits just slightly below the veneer, so in order to not sand through the veneer, what I did was I put this strip of blue tape across there to protect it from the sandpaper, and I'll sand this little piece by hand. Now I noticed when I was sanding that the side panels had come off of this back panel. So what I'm going to do is use some of this yellow carpenter's glue in here, and then put these boards across the side to help distribute the clamp pressure. There's one. Two. And then we have these clamps. Going to clamp these across it. Pinch those sides down where we need them. There, I can take the tape off now. And we'll let this sit overnight until the glue sets up, and then we're back in business. All right, as you can see, I've got all the sanding done. I had to make a couple repairs on the drawers, and I found out while I was sanding that the two middle drawers are actually quarter sawn white oak instead of teak. So, on to the legs next. All right, as you can see, the legs, while in pretty good shape, are very wobbly. Most of this is from the old glue that was used, is deteriorated from use, people moving it around. So what I'm going to do is take it apart, put new glue in, redo the screws, and sand it while I'm at it so the paint will look nice when I'm all done. All right, as you can see, I've got this leg disassembled and I have the pieces sanded. You don't need to go nuts, you just need to deglaze the finish, so you've got something for the new paint to grab onto. And then I did sand around where the joints are going to go together. Let me show you a trick. This is just a regular toothpick. I cut the little pointy end off. If you put one of those in every hole, push it in, break it off, then when you put the screw in, the screw will have something more to bite on than the original wood that was there. So I'm going to go ahead and put this back together with glue and clamp it up, and I'll show you when I'm all done. Okay, and we're back. Right now we're going to start with the staining. So I am using a Minwax natural finish. So what you do for the stain is you apply it with a brush, let it soak in for a few minutes, and then wipe it off with a rag. It's as simple as that. And then you need to let this dry for about 24 hours before you're ready to do the clear coat. So you let it sit, wipe it off, and the wiping helps to even out your color. And let it sit for a few minutes and go back over it again with the rag, and that'll make sure your cover's nice and even. Now these have had a chance to sit up overnight, and I've put them on a rack for painting to make it easier. As you can see, I have labeled everything of the respective positions to where they go, because I know a lot of times on furniture like this, they do what's called book matching of the veneer, where the veneer will be run over two adjoining drawer fronts, so it looks like one solid piece of wood. Now I'm going to be putting on a clear water-based poly, and I will be spraying it with this. I prefer to use the sprayer because it gives better results, but if you don't have a sprayer, brushing is always fine. So first step that I've already done is to go ahead and use a tack rag on these and get any residual dust off, and then we will start spraying. Okay, the first step, I'm going to give these a coat of the poly on the inside. What that'll do is that'll give us a nice surface inside. Any residual, splintering or anything like that will be taken care of. There, as you can see, the poly goes on a little bit milky, but as soon as it dries, that milkiness goes away and it ends up a nice, clear, tough finish. Now after you have the first couple coats on, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over it with a really fine sandpaper. I have a 320 sandpaper here. What that is a really fine grit. That'll get any dust or imperfections off of the surface before you go any further. You don't need to do a whole lot, just get a nice smooth finish on it. Just like that. A little roughness right there. Okay. Perfect. Now, since I'm using a poly on this, instead of using a tack rag at this point, what I'm going to do is use a rag with water, and that'll take off any of the poly. It won't leave any residues. That'll keep the poly from sticking in the next coats. Alright, now that I've got all the spraying done of the clear coat, what I'm going to do is paint the legs. These are the legs that you saw me fix the other day. The glue has all dried up and everything's nice and sturdy, and I've gone to the trouble of pre-priming these. So we're going to put on probably 4 coats of black. Here it is, our finished credenza. The drawers all look nice. They work good. I still don't have the hardware, but as soon as I get that, I will post some pictures to my Instagram page, which is Trash Panda Vintage Furniture on Instagram. So make sure you take a look at that, follow me there. You can also see, remember when I shook it originally, it almost fell over. It's nice and stable now. I'm happy with the way it came out. Looks like there was at one time a refinish of it, and they did get a little close on the grain. You can kind of see the veneer there is a little thin. It's not a perfect piece, but it was great for making this video. So thank you for watching, and make sure to subscribe to my page at Trash Panda Vintage Furniture, and thank you for watching.